that collapse was completely symmetric. With the model put forth by Garcia, the collapse would be chaotic and asymmetric, and it probably would not all happen at once. There would be part of the building collapse, and that would cause further weakening that would end up in more collapse, and it would crescendo into the final whole building coming down. Third, and this is probably very crucial, is the appearance of these squibs outside of the building when the building collapsed. Squibs are rapidly ejecting high-pressure material outside of the building. And when WTC-7 collapsed, 7 of those squibs were observed coming from different floors. These squibs cannot be explained by Garcia's model. They provide the direct evidence for explosions on those floors.
Manuel Garcia makes the case that a diesel fuel fire, which was fueled by two 6,000-gallon tanks owned by Solomon Smith Barney, were being pumped in by emergency electric power onto floor 7. There was evidence of a fire on floor 7, and he says that that fire acted like a blast furnace and completely fatigued truss number 2, and he cites columns 80, 77, and 74. These are tempered steel columns. Could a fire of any sort cause steel to fatigue, and could that fatigue in any way be attributed to the symmetrical collapse that was witnessed?
Well, there is a problem with that whole scenario. There is enough energy there in that diesel fuel, but the thing is, to bring the building down, you also have to have the power. The diesel fuel was burned up. There's evidence that it was burned up, but out of how long a time is unknown. Second of all, the heat from that fuel may have been adequate to cause the fatigue in truss 2 and the breakup of a few columns. But the fact is, all 91 columns of this building came down, collapsed in less than 7 seconds. That scenario could not have caused all 91 columns to collapse symmetrically around the building.
At the end of September 2001, you wrote a short paper entitled "The World Trade Center Collapse, Waiting for a Fuse." In it, you speculate that explosives were also used to bring down Towers 1 and perhaps Towers 2. Do you still believe that, and what do you base this on?
Well, I think I do still believe this, because these squibs that I was talking about, there's evidence for these squibs and the bring down of, I believe it's Tower 2, the North Tower. That tower started collapsing at the top, where there was a massive cloud of dust. But meanwhile, while there was dust was coming down, there were squibs observed at lower floors. That indicates to me that there were explosions at lower floors. And in fact, what was causing that massive cloud of dust was a massive explosion right at the top. And I think there is good evidence that they had explosives planted in quite a number of places in these buildings. Now, for example, let's consider World Trade Center Tower 1, which is the first one to come down. It was hit by a plane, but the plane almost missed the building. It just caught a corner of it. Then 57 minutes later, suddenly the top 34 floors of that building, well, first of all, the top 34 floors almost went on rotation, and that completely would violate the principle of conservation of angular momentum, unless there was a massive explosion imparting that angular momentum.
Many people were also concerned that it looked like the top block of World Trade Center 1 seemed to twist and come down. However, it almost came down slightly tilted. Now, Dave Griscom, in his article, Hand Waving, makes the point that for the amount of energy contained in that top block falling to have the kind of impact to collapse the rest of the building, especially symmetrically, it would have had to have been a perfect fall. Now, we noticed that the building did come down with a slight tilt to it. This could have, he says this could have diffused some of the energy. Have you looked at this possibility?
I'm not sure that I quite follow David Griscolin's argument, but on the other hand, if it does come down in a tilt, and by the way, there's another principle that may violate, because coming down in a tilt like that, you do have gravitational pull, but you also have a conservational momentum. And was the perturbations analysis adequate to produce that fall without some other force like an explosion? But if it came down away from the building like it was